Well, long story short, within a few weeks, I was saved. I realized that I believed the historicity. I believed what Jesus said and who he claimed to be, that he claimed to be God, and that the evidence supported the fact that he was indeed God walking on this earth. Welcome to the Christi MD podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Dr. Christi, and I'm just delighted to talk to you and share today something very special and important to me. Today, I'd like to share with you my testimony of what Jesus Christ has done in my life and how I apply that to my medical practice. All right, I'll just begin at the beginning. How about that? I grew up in a Catholic home. I was baptized Catholic, and we would go to Mass fairly regularly. I would say that our family, while we would go to Mass and celebrate the holidays and do confirmation and all of that, I would say that it didn't necessarily translate into faith in the home. Somehow I missed along the way the true message of the gospel. I also grew up in the summers. I would go up to my grandmother's place in East Texas out in the countryside, and she was going to a church that was Assemblies of God, which is a very charismatic church, almost completely opposite of Catholicism in a way. I mean, the doctrines are, and the way that the religion is practiced is very, very different. But I would go to Vacation Bible School, and I would go to church with her. It was very Pentecostal, very raising hands to worship. And I felt more, I think, like a spectator than part of that church. And it wasn't really a faith, my own personal faith, I would say. Like many other Catholics, I began to, that I've heard their testimony as well. As I got into teenage years, high school years, I began to really wonder, what's the point of all this? Like, why am I doing this? I don't really want to do this. I'd rather be doing other things than going to church. I didn't really see the point. And I had this idea that church was supposed to, and religion was to make you a good person. And I felt like I was already kind of a good person. I've always kind of tended to be kind and to give people the benefit of the doubt and be a joyful person by nature. So I just didn't feel like I needed to go to church anymore. And I know that was probably hard for my dad, especially, but I just began to pull away from that. And then I went to college, and I continued to get further and further away from my upbringing. I totally did not think that religion mattered. I didn't think it was important. I even evolved to the point where I thought it was really stupid and ridiculous, and it was for closed-minded people who don't have enough brains and don't do enough research to really see the way the world really is and see the world scientifically. So then I began to really go into agnosticism and then ultimately atheism. And it really was more like, it wasn't like something I was really putting a stake in the ground. It was more like just who cares? Like, I don't care. I don't need it. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm too busy trying to become a doctor to go to church, and plus I'm trying to have fun in college, I want to have a good time. So I go to med school, and this is where it really gets interesting. Okay, I go to med school, and at this point, I think I was more maybe agnostic. I don't know. I think maybe at that point I began to realize, like, well, can I really say for sure there's not a God? I'd have to be know more than God to say there's not a God. I'd have to know everything in the universe. So maybe there is something, but I still don't think it really matters that much. I'm a good person. So I go to med school, and all of a sudden I'm around all these other people that are so accomplished and so far beyond me in many ways that I realized, like, who am I? I had a real crisis, identity crisis. I think up till that point, I had kind of gone to high school and college in the same city in Atlanta, and was kind of known. People kind of knew me, knew what I had done or accomplished. I felt like I kind of like went into that framework, being kind of known, or having, like, somebody might say, oh yeah, she was on a scholarship or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, my identity was wrapped up in my accomplishments and my accolades and my resume. Whatever I could put on there, that's what gave me value and worth. So I get to med school, and here's all these really smart people. And am I going to, like, I didn't know how to really express who I am outside of my resume. That's so sad. Like, I really didn't know who I was outside of my resume. I felt like I had really no worth outside of that. Like, everything about Christi that was good was on the resume, So I realized that all of a sudden, like, I realized, there's a problem here. Like, this doesn't feel good, and this is not a good way to go through life. So I began the process of figuring out who I was. I did some crazy things. Like, I drove across country by myself with my little dog, all the way from Birmingham to California and back over Christmas break, through the snow, just kind of staying with friends of friends along the way, or staying with people I knew. And trying to figure out who I was. I still didn't figure it out. Surprise. I began to go into New Age. I really dived into the New Age realm. I can't remember how I started doing that, but I remember going to New Age bookstores, and I remember I got this book called Her Blood is Gold, and it was about the power of the menstruation cycle and how we need to recognize the power that's in our menstruation. I mean, weird stuff like that. Really began to recognize that maybe there is a spiritual component to life. Maybe there's a spiritual aspect to me and to the world. Maybe I should be open to that. Let's see if maybe there's something there. I think there might be a need in my life for that. At the same time, I was starting to get more physically active. I had never really exercised up till that point. So I became physically active. I was running. I started playing ultimate frisbee. That led me to a hippie crowd, where I really became more of a hippie, more feminist, which went along with the New Age movement, becoming more feminist. I cut my hair. I didn't want to wear makeup or shave my underarms, just because it was all men's fault. Like, everything wrong was men, and that they were making women do things. I don't know. it's hard to really understand my thought process completely at that time. I have old journals that I look at sometimes. It's really interesting. So along that path, I once I recognized, okay, there is a spiritual need in my life. I need spirituality. So being involved in the New Age movement, I created my own goddess. I just decided, like, okay, since we can't really know really who God is, and there's so many religions, just make up your own God. Why not? Who says you can't? So I even have a journal. I drew a picture of this goddess that I would worship, and pray to, and ask her to protect me and strengthen me. I realize now how dark that is and how scary that actually is, if you think about it. So here I am going along, and I've got this goddess, and I think I'm kind of making some progress. And I hit the third year of med school, and I was getting more depressed. I had been going through some depression over the last couple years, dealing with some trauma from my childhood that came up, some difficult relationships that I was navigating with my family, breaking up from my college boyfriend, dealing with a lot of life was happening. And I remember it was the fall, and I was pretty depressed, and I was actually on the psychiatry rotation for med school. And the psychiatrist, Dr. Kramer, he called me in his office one day, and he said, Christi, I think you're depressed. And I said, why do you think that? Like I thought I was hiding it really good from everybody. And I started crying a little bit. And he said, I just see the signs that you're depressed. And he said, there's this new drug called Prozac that I think you should try. I said, okay, I'll try it. It was brand new. That was when Prozac first came out. So I was pretty excited to try it. I'd been reading about it. And so I got on Prozac. Well, about that time, one of my best friends from college called me. Her name's Michelle. And she was we just had very similar life path, like just kind of smart girls that could accomplish a lot of things and had accomplished a lot of things. She had gone to Berkeley Law School when she hit her wall. And she said that she had also been very depressed. And I was so excited to tell her about this new medication, and I told her, I was like, oh my gosh, Michelle, you need to get on Prozac. This stuff is amazing. It's really, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like I really didn't have much hope. Everything seems so dark. But with Prozac now I see the light at the end of the tunnel. And she told me that she had found another solution for her depression. But she wanted to tell me in person. We were going to see each other at Christmas time. And she wanted to tell me in person. And I pressed her. I just kept saying, tell me now, tell me now. So she finally told me that it was Jesus, that she had begun to follow Jesus. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's so dumb. She's so stupid. Well, little did I know that the seeds had been being planted over the last 2 years. I had been going to a Wednesday pizza, free pizza called Pizza and Perspectives at my med school that was put on by a Christian ministry, where we would learn ethical issues from the Christian perspective. And I went just for free pizza, because you want free food when you're in med school. And I would sit there and just look down my nose at these Christians like they're so stupid and closed-minded. But by the end of those 2 years, my perspectives had begun to shift a little bit. I began to see abortion differently. I began to see euthanasia differently. So now Michelle's telling me this, and she's so smart. And I thought, you know what? If she's that smart, I need to look into this. But I still don't think that Christianity can be the only religion. There's so many and they're similar. So I'm just going to research all of them and pick the one that I think, which was a very postmodern type of philosophy to approach life. But I'm going to start with Christianity because that's what I grew up with. Well, long story short, within a few weeks, I was saved. I realized that I believed the historicity. I believed what Jesus said and who he claimed to be, that he claimed to be God, and that the evidence supported the fact that he was indeed God walking on this earth. And if that was true, and if what he said was true, if he could bring healing and wholeness to me, if he could bring hope and joy to my life, I wanted that. I wanted to be free from this dark cloud that was on me. And so I put my faith, I said, okay, if you're real, here you go. I'm yours. It was like my eyes were opened. I could see the world the way that he created it, the way he wants us to see it. And I've walked with him ever since. That's been 30 years. I just celebrated my 30th birthday of being reborn. So how do I apply this to my practice? And I need to wrap it up. So I'm a totally sold out to Jesus. I belong to him. And I've always given my career, my practice, everything to him and for him. And to me, this is my way of serving him, by serving people, loving them with the gifts that he's given me. He's given me a strong mind. He's given me hands that can operate. And so I use that to hopefully bless my patients. And I pray with my patients because I believe that ultimately Jesus is the one that brings healing. And he uses me. He uses my team, whether in the office or in the operating room, and technology. He's given us the brains to find robotic technology. I mean, we do miracles. Women 100 years ago that their bladders were hanging out, they would be so elated and overjoyed to know they could have a surgery with 4 little openings and have their bladder problem solved and go home the same day. Miracles. So I just give everything to him. I give him the glory, to Jesus. He gives me strength. He gives me endurance for the race, this long career. He gives me more joy every year with my career. He gives me wisdom for how to move forward. And my entire desire is that people will see Jesus reflected in me. That's all I want. That's my testimony. Love to get your feedback.